Good morning. Could we please remain standing for the royal salute as we welcome Her Honor Judy Foote. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. I would like to begin by acknowledging the territory in which we gather as the ancestral, unceded homeland of the Beothuk, of the island of Newfoundland, and the unceded ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today for the announcement on the National War Memorial Centennial Project. I would like to begin by turning this over to Premier Furey for a few words. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joanne. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Your Honor, my friends and colleagues, Minister MacAulay, Minister O'Regan, Minister Hutchings, Minister Crocker, Mr. Sullivan, Lieutenant Colonel Hatfield, members of the Royal Newfoundland and Labrador Regiment and Legion. I truly appreciate you all taking your time to join us here in our beautiful province today for this historic announcement. Past President Berkeley Lawrence and Gary Brown have worked tirelessly on the restoration of the site, and past President Frank Sullivan contributed determined efforts on the War Memorial, along, of course, with my friend Minister MacAulay. I can tell you, when I first started, they made it very clear to me just how important this project was to the entire province and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And our government was more than happy to give its full support. Now, in July 2016, I was fortunate enough, on the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Beaumont-Hamel, to make a pilgrimage to France, just a few kilometers north of the town of Lambert in the district of the Somme. The place previously existed only in my imagination from the numerous accounts that I have read over the years of what happened there on that dreadful, dreadful day. It was first, of course, covered in culture courses at school and again in history classes. And I often found myself trying to reconcile July 1st as both a day of memorial and a day of celebration for the rest of Canada. For some reason, that irony seems very much like a Newfoundland and Labrador thing. At memorials across our beautiful province, I recall reading familiar names: Furey, Carew, and Cleary, O'Keefe and Walsh. Each an echo of old Newfoundland and Labrador family names. Young men from inlets, fishing villages, and towns, or from the streets of Old St. John's. Some as young as 16, having lied about their age to go on what I'm sure they thought would be a grand adventure. Instead, they cashed in a ticket to a disaster. The mud, the bullets, the gas. The upheaval of war that shatters both people and place. Here, the Royal Newfoundland Regiment would make such a great sacrifice in such a short amount of time. Now, we've all heard the numbers. Over 780 men advanced on enemy lines on the morning of July 1st, 1916. Just 68 were able to answer the roll call the next day. It took just 30 minutes for 90% of the regiment to be gunned down. A wound was opened that day in France and has never healed fully here at home. On that visit to Beaumont-Hamel, with visions of enormous claps of artillery, gunfire, the shouts of those fighting, the screams of wounded and dying, I was struck by how hauntingly quiet the place actually was. A breeze actually rustled through some leaves somehow, and it was the loudest sound I heard that day. I remember as we walked by the monument, the trenches now just grassy mounds, I felt my daughter Rachel's little hand take mine as she pointed out the danger tree, the regiment's rallying spot, and the point of no return. At that moment, I could feel the weight of where I was and what it all meant to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. That no matter where you stood here, you were standing on a grave. Their names known only to the earth, their bodies long ago surrendered to time. But the memory of what they did and the broken hearts of those left in their absence so far away, these are what we are left to honor. We honor them where they fell. We honor them from where they came. And it fills me, as Premier, with enormous pride today to tell you that one of those nameless souls of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment will be coming home. As part of the War Memorial in downtown St. John's, we will be creating a tomb of the unknown soldier. It will contain the repatriated remains of one of our lost sons, cut down too young and too soon in the Battle of the Somme. One of our fallen heroes, courageous, will be coming home. Construction will be completed in time for the 100th anniversary of the War Memorial. We all know in 1916, Newfoundland and Labrador was its own nation, proud nation, one that took its obligation to Britain, the world, and the war very seriously. We answered a call to war, a call to protect freedom. Knowing what we know now, would we still do it? And I have no doubt we absolutely would. Because it's something we've done again and again throughout our history, and we've done it since. Because it's simply the right thing to do. For justice, for peace, for those less fortunate, for freedom. We give ourselves not for the benefit or not for glory, but because simply we know it's the right thing to do. Now I see many today in uniform and many medals here, and I can only humbly thank you for your service. Know that you are part of a proud line that stretches from the stone steps on Duckworth to the quiet corner in France, where grass covers what was lost so long ago, but can never silence the memory of the sacrifices made. Lest we forget, we will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. It's incredibly moving, and what an honor for Newfoundland and Labrador. I would now like to ask Minister MacAulay, a very good friend to this province, to please come forward.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Pleased to be with Your Honor again. It's a pleasure indeed. Premier, Minister Regan, Minister Hutchins, MP McDonald, Ken, I don't know if he's here or not, I think. Anyhow, Minister Crocker, Frank Sullivan, spearheaded this project. Thank you so much. Members of the Lambert family, veterans, distinguished guests. I'm certainly, as Joanne said, very pleased to be back in St. John's, Newfoundland again, and very impressed with your weather. On behalf of all veterans in Canada, I wish to thank the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and the provincial command of the Royal Canadian Legion for taking on the National War Memorial Project, Centennial Project. It is truly a great initiative. As Minister of Veterans Affairs and a Member of Parliament for over 30 years, I have attended my fair share of Remembrance Day ceremonies. and other events at countries and other national war memorials and in downtown Ottawa. And I can tell you, from the people who live there, and really for all Canadians who set foot on those grounds, it really touches folks to be able to come and pay their respect at the foot of the unknown soldier. By creating a tomb here, it will be the same for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And this unknown soldier will be one of yours. On my way here, I was just wondering what this young Newfoundlander was like. Was he from the family of fishermen, or did he have a sweetheart? You always try to imagine what life was like in the military and what life he had for the months and years leading up the days in Europe, where more than 6,200 men from the Newfoundland and Labrador served in the Royal Newfoundland Regiment during the First World War. Another 5,700 more served in Newfoundland's Royal Navy Reserve, the Newfoundland Forestry Corps, the Canadian Expeditionary Force, and other allied forces. I know there's quite a bit of work to do before an official repatriation ceremony can take place, and I want to let you know that this is a very special undertaking. At the end of the First World War, the Commonwealth nations agreed that the bodies of men and women would be buried close to where they were killed. There would be no repatriation of remains. And so today, this announcement is very special. For the many years, the Government of Canada and the Commonwealth War Graves Commission have worked closely together to ensure that the fallen have not been forgotten. Today's announcement is yet an example of the federal government's commitment to preserve the memory of Canadians who have given their lives for freedom. As Minister of Veterans Affairs, I could not have been more proud than to work with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to support this request. I want to thank the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, its commissioners, including the Honourable Ralph Goodale, Canada's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, who presented Canada's request, for the support of this extraordinary effort to repatriate an unknown soldier from Newfoundland and Labrador. Whoever the unknown soldier was, and however he has and wherever he has served, we know he is from here, from this beautiful place. He will soon represent all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who fought in the First World War. So he will be back to rest for all eternity in a place he called home, lest we forget.
Minister MacAulay, thank you. And it's now my pleasure to ask Minister O'Regan to come forward, my friend and colleague.
I used to have complicated feelings about the War Memorial. I often walked down Duckworth Street and looked up at the statues and the stonework, and I couldn't help but reflect on those difficult what-if questions. What if those governments an ocean away hadn't started the Great War? What if an entire generation of young, strong-willed Newfoundlanders hadn't lost their lives on the battlefields of Europe? What if the brothers, the sisters, the fathers, the mothers of those who'd fallen an ocean away had pooled their resources into something other than a monument to collective grief? But as I've gotten older and wiser and grayer, I realize now that those are shallow questions. They are historical hypotheticals that do nothing other than reinforce a self-evident truth that war exacts a terrible toll on those involved. The people who wax on about the futility of war fail to realize that this monument is not a memorial for war, it is a memorial for warriors. The stone, the statues, are intended to stand post in eternity for those who fell and could not come home. The memorial was raised to honor those shipped out but never returned, a reality for many families, including my own, when Lieutenant Richard Shortall fell at Beaumont Hamel, having fought and been singled out by his brothers in arms and in the press for his bravery at Gallipoli. Many others fought and fell at Gallipoli, Guidocourt, Monchy-le-Preux, Ypres, far off places, far from here. Many who fought and died on those hallowed grounds, and unlike my great-great-uncle Richard, know no marked resting place, whose families had no grave to visit, no body of their own to bury. We honor and remember the dead so that the living may know upon whose shoulders we stand. Our National War Memorial sits in one of the busiest parts of the city, not so that we can say, what if, but so that we can say thank you. And from time to time, stand in collective remembrance of the sacrifices that few of us can comprehend. Thank you to the men and women who serve our country today. Thank you to the men and women who fought and died in Afghanistan. Thank you to those who fought in Korea and the Second World War. Thank you to the men of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment who not only answered the call of the King, but fought tooth and nail for the future and for the honor of their country. Make no mistake, that monument stands for us all. The sailor, the soldier, the lumberman, the fisherman, all standing in their own way to support the spirit of Newfoundland atop them all. The torch of freedom lighting our way forward, held high in her left hand. In her right, the sword, drawn but not raised, not seeking conflict, but prepared, as we are, to defend what we hold dear. I was proud to support the early work on this as Minister of Veterans Affairs. I was proud to stand at the War Memorial and unveil the commemorative plaque for this National Historic Site, just as I am proud to stand here today to announce that the Government of Canada will be contributing to the revitalization of this important national landmark. This is not just a revitalization. We are expanding this memorial to better encapsulate the totality of its purpose. Earlier, I mentioned the men who fought and now rest in Beaumont Hamel, Gallipoli, Guidocourt, Monchy-le-Preux, Ypres, Duckworth Street. Soon. Duckworth Street. Home. We have begun the repatriation of an unknown soldier who will be laid to rest here at our national memorial. He will join the statues and the stone as an eternal reminder of war's costs, its casualties, its giants, its heroes. And we will gather there again to commemorate the fallen, to console those left behind, and to hold our heads high, reflecting their pride in a nation for which they gave their all. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister O'Regan. Our next speaker, who I would like to invite to come forward to say a few words, is Frank Sullivan from the Royal Canadian Legion, Newfoundland and Labrador Command.
Your Honor, Premier Furey, Minister MacAulay, federal ministers, federal MPs, MHAs, and provincial ministers, veterans, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to stand here today. I would like to just recall the inspiration that started me down this path. First, I was in the service when the Canadian unknown soldier lay in state in Ottawa in the foyer Parliament buildings. And I said to myself, why not Newfoundland? And it kind of slipped away a little bit. I retired, I moved back. Member of the Legion, attended all kinds of services all over this country. And there's a few things that brought me to where we are today. One of them was Mr. Lyle O'Hearn. I'm sure some of you remember as a MHA, MP, minister. He wrote a song, Only One Tree, about Beaumont Hamel. I loved the song, but I didn't appreciate the song until I visited Beaumont Hamel. And at that time, you finally realize the significance of the song. He wrote another song, less known, about the hills of Newfoundland, telling the story of a young soldier saying goodbye to his mother and sweetheart on the waterfront in St. John's, sailing out through the Narrows, and killed near the last battle of the First World War, never again to see the hills of Newfoundland. I was at Beaumont Hamel in 2012 with the Legion pilgrimage, and former Premier Cathy Dunderdale joined us. After the ceremony was over, she came over to me and she said, Frank, every Newfoundlander should get an opportunity to see this. I said, I fully agree. Then I was at the launch at the rooms of Sing You Home by the Ennis Sisters. And it comes back to you. Finally, when the decision was made to restore our National War Memorial and have a rededication ceremony in 2024, the 100th anniversary, Mr. Berkeley Lawrence and Gary Brown, I started thinking about this and I said, maybe I should put something together, do a little research, and present this to the Royal Canadian Legion as part of this restoration. I did that. And when I did the research, I found out that Australia had repatriated a soldier in 1993, Canada in 2000, New Zealand, an unknown warrior in 2004, and South Africa, an unknown soldier in 2015. And I said to myself, Newfoundland was a country back then, why haven't we got one? Let's see if we can make this happen. And reading on the Canadian War Memorial, when the remains were selected from Vimy Ridge, Dr. Serge Bernier, a Minister of National Defense, told the group, if we select this soldier from Vimy Ridge, he will not represent Newfoundland. Newfoundland was a country of its own back then and didn't fight at Vimy Ridge. That, to me, said it all. So the soldier, to me then, who lays in state, God rest him, in Ottawa, doesn't represent us, doesn't represent the people of Newfoundland. Now we'll have our own, who will represent our great province. But this unknown warrior will come home. He'll be laying in a tomb in our National War Memorial. He will represent the Newfoundland Royal Naval Reserve, the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, Newfoundlanders who served with the Royal Air Force and the Royal Flying Corps, the Mercantile and Merchant Marines, the Newfoundland Forestry Corps and Forestry Unit, Newfoundland nurses and Voluntary Aid Detachment, nurses in training who served and died overseas, the Newfoundland Constabulary, the Newfoundland fishermen who acted as coastal spotters and coastal watchers, the Newfoundlanders who served with the Canadian Expeditionary Force, and all those who served in the armed forces of other countries and served with pride. It's been a journey, a successful journey, that will enhance the historic accomplishments of this great province. And there's a lot of people to thank. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Royal Canadian Legion for giving me the lead on this and supporting me 100%. The Premier and his government, the federal government, Mr. Ralph Goodale, who was mentioned before, the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom, who presented our case at the War Graves Commission. Sir Bill Rollo, who visited us and had a meeting in the Premier's office to find out what this was all about. He is the Vice Chair of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Mr. David Loveridge, who is the representative for the Americans on the Canadian War Graves Commission. Last, by no means least, Mr. Ken MacDonald. When I prepared a letter for Minister MacAulay, I got a hold to him and had a meeting, presented him the letter. He forwarded a letter of support along with my letter. We are here today because of all these individuals, and on behalf of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, I thank each and every one of you. Lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I would now like to ask Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Hatfield, 1st and 2nd Battalions from the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, to come forward and share a few words.
Good morning, Your Honor, Premier Furey, Ministers MacAulay and O'Regan, government, veterans, and military leadership. On behalf of Her Honor, the Honorary Colonel of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, and the serving members and the wider regimental family of the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, we first wish to express our deepest appreciation for the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador, the Government of Canada, and the Royal Canadian Legion for their leadership in what is a deep, historic, and significant initiative. We are proud that the unknown soldier, who will honor all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who have served and sacrificed, will come from the regiment and the sacred battlefield of Beaumont-Hamel. The Royal Newfoundland Regiment and the Battle of Beaumont-Hamel is just one decisive chapter in a long history of military service in this province. Ours is a history that is born in battle and written in blood. As the current custodians of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, our soldiers today come from across the entire province. They serve in honor of those brave soldiers who have gone before us. We all stand and serve in the shadows of some great men and women. The repatriation of one of our own will serve as a poignant reminder and inspiration of the exceptional sacrifices of all those who serve, past and present. Through this one unknown soldier, we will remember them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Hatfield. And now I would like to invite Minister Crocker to come forward to share some words and to close today's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Your Honor, Premier, Minister MacAulay, Minister O'Regan, Minister Hutchings, my fellow colleagues, my fellow ministers from Newfoundland and Labrador, my colleagues from the House of Assembly. It's an absolute honor this morning to be here as we recognize this important step on the National War Memorial Centennial Project. and applaud the formal approval to proceed from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. I follow several speakers here this morning, and I echo many of their words. I want to acknowledge the value of the leadership on this project of Premier Furey, Minister MacAulay. You took the reins of this project a little under a year ago, I think. I had the pleasure to meet with the Premier, Frank, Berkeley, and Gary in the Premier's office one, I think, Friday afternoon, at which time they presented this project to the Premier, and he immediately gave me instructions to meet with Minister MacAulay, and I think within 10 days I met with Minister MacAulay. And he also took this project that day and got us to where we are today. So again, thank you for your commitment to this project. The Royal Canadian Legion, Newfoundland and Labrador Command, who have spearheaded this project, your passion has been unwavering, not only for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, but as well the restoration of our war memorial. And I look at Berkeley Lawrence here this morning, and in 2017, when I became tourism minister on November the 11th, I was at my home, War Memorial in Carbonear, and Berkeley at the time, as president of the provincial command, approached me and said, "We've got to talk about the National War Memorial." And we did. And at that time, I quickly reached out to Minister O'Regan, and along with Berkeley and others, we went and toured that memorial, and at that time made the commitment that we would ensure that that memorial was restored for 2024. So thank you, Berkeley, Gary, Frank, for your commitment to this project, and all members of the Legion. This approval is a tribute to the members of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment who fought and died during the Battle of the Somme, and to all who died during the First War, and all who have served since that have no grave. On July the 1st, I had the opportunity to attend the Memorial Day ceremony in Beaumont-Hamel, France, as we do each year to commemorate the Battle of the Somme. It was an absolute honor to join the Royal Newfoundland Regiment that day, and on a day preceding, I also joined the regiment and the family members for the burial ceremony of Private John Lambert in Belgium. Private Lambert's remains were discovered in 2016, along with two other First War worn soldiers. The remains were identified in 2020 with the assistance of the rooms. I'd like to take a moment this morning to acknowledge the members of Private Lambert's family who are joining us today, and thank them for allowing us to join in the special ceremony in Belgium. Our government continues to celebrate the First World War contributions of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment in France and in Belgium. The Trail of the Caribou, which consists of 5 bronze statues, commemorates the bravery shown by Newfoundlanders during the First World War. In September, we look forward to the unveiling and dedication of the 6th and final Caribou Monument in Gallipoli, the site where Newfoundlanders first fought in September 1915. Today marks an important step as we move forward with the 100th anniversary of the War Memorial and the commemoration to be held on July 1st, 2024. We look forward to the work ahead and can assure you that this project will take precedence for our government. Thank you very much. This brings to a conclusion today's events. Thank you again for coming out today. It is a significant day in the history of Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'd like to thank you for all sharing in it, lest we forget.